If you've ever gone out to the beach, set everything up, and felt like you were doing everything right and still didn't catch anything, you're not alone. As a professional beach fishing guide, I've had hundreds of beginner anglers out with me on the beach, and I see the same mistakes over and over again. So in this video, we're going to break down the top 5 mistakes that I see newer surf anglers make that are costing them fish and honestly causing a lot of frustration. Stick with me to the end because I'm going to show you one simple adjustment that most people completely miss and overlook. It's going to make such a huge difference, especially when the water isn't perfect. If you're new to my channel, my name is Kathy Sanders and I'm a beach fishing guide here in Northeast Florida. Mistake number 1 is they are casting where there are no fish. So we all know 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water. You hear that whether you're fishing inshore, whether you're fishing in freshwater. Fish like that structure. If you know where to cast, you're going to be catching fish. On the beach, this can be a little bit tricky. So what I notice is, first of all, people are overcasting. You don't have to even cast 100 yards out to be able to get on the fish. So a lot of times, especially if you're on a high impact beach like we have here in Northeast Florida, if you're casting out as far as you can, you're probably missing quite a few fish that you'd be catching. In the fall and all the redfish are swimming on the surf, most of the redfish that I've ever caught were probably within 20 feet or 20 yards of the shoreline. So big fish come in to feed. You don't want to be overcasting and missing your opportunity to catch fish. And then also with that first mistake is that you're not fishing with structure. Learning how to read the beach is one of the most crucial keys to catching fish on the beach. If you know how to identify the sandbars and know how to identify the cut, the run out, I've got videos on my channel. I've got a whole series of pro tips, and we have 3 or 4 videos about how to read the beach, whether it's a high impact beach, a low impact beach, how to know where those sandbars are, how to know where the rips are and the cuts are. You can check those out later, and we're going to put links in the description of the video. Fish like structure, and so if you're casting in a place where there's really not a lot of structure, the chances are there's probably not a lot of fish there hanging out either. Pompano, for instance, they like to run right behind the sandbar. They might be running right in front of the sandbar or on top of it. Fish are swimming in and out of those cuts. You don't want to set up in the middle of it because the predator fish hang out on the sides of the cuts. So I like to set up, maybe 10 to 15 yards on either side of a good run out. Learn how to read the beach. It's really, really going to help you and your hookup rate to get better and better. And if you're finding this information helpful, please hit that like, hit the subscribe, because we have a bunch of other videos on this channel that you don't want to miss. It's going to help you become a better angler. Mistake number 2, the bait is too big. And so bigger bait doesn't always mean bigger or better fish. I often see people making the mistake of putting bait on that's too big, or maybe I'm fishing with a friend or something that doesn't do a lot of beach fishing, and I'll see them put a whole entire jumbo shrimp just through the body on the hook. No. We got to fix this right now. So you want to match your bait size to the fish's mouth size. So if you've caught a pompano or a whiting and you took a look at the size of that mouth, you're going to notice they don't have very big mouths. And you have to keep in mind that even those bigger fish that have bigger mouths, they're going to eat smaller bait. If they're hungry, they're going to eat it if it's there. So look at the size of the mouth on the fish that you're targeting and make sure your bait is under that size of their mouth. For instance, if I catch a big sand flea, sometimes we get the really big ones, I'll cut that thing in half because I know if the fish I'm really wanting is a pompano, it's not going to be able to fit that thing in its mouth. With shrimp, like I was talking about, don't just hook it through the body. My favorite thing to do, I buy the fresh shrimp. I buy it live, so I have the freshest dead shrimp that I possibly can have, but I rip the heads off. I rip the tails off, leave all the legs if you can, but I'm going to break that shrimp in half and thread it onto the hook. It's maybe about this big, but it's going to stay small enough to fit inside of the mouth of the fish that I'm targeting. So remember, elephants eat peanuts. Even redfish, black drum, other coveted species from the surf are going to bite on a medium-sized sand flea or a smaller shrimp or like just a piece of a shrimp or a salted shrimp. I salt my own shrimp. We have a video out about how to do that. So at the end, you can take a look at that video too and not be throwing all your money away on shrimp. But many times those bigger fish, you're going to be able to catch them on a smaller size bait. Don't put a whole entire mullet on your line. Sometimes you may want to do that, but for the most part, even if you're targeting a bluefish, they do have bigger mouths, but it's going to ensure that they can get their mouth over top of that bait. Let's move on to mistake number 3 that I see a lot of beginner anglers making. They are not watching their fishing poles. So I know it's nice to go out to the beach and rest and relax and things like that, but if you want to catch the fish, you're not going to see the hit if you're on your phone or if you got your eyes closed, leaning back, relaxing. You got to stay attentive. They're sitting looking at their phone, and I'm seeing their pole go crazy, and by the time they turn around and realize it or look up, the fish is gone. I know we can't watch our lines every single second. I can't either. Sometimes I'm rebaiting and trying to get a line back out, and I got one going off, and somebody nice next to me may go, "Hey, you got a fish," or they'll just like yell and point at my line. Staying attentive is going to help you not miss a fish. My rule of thumb is about every 20 to 30 minutes, I'm checking my bait. You don't want to miss the schools of fish when they're coming through, because if maybe you had a crab or you had little bait fish that are eating your bait off of the hook, and you've just been sitting back relaxing, not really paying attention, and your line's been out there for 45 minutes, and there's no bait left on it when the school of fish come through, then you're going to be out of luck because other people are going to be catching fish and yours just doesn't have anything on it. And another little bonus tip here is that you're not going to lose your sinker either, because if you have left your line out there for maybe 45 minutes and an hour, you've got the waves washing up, putting sand over top of that Sputnik every single time they come up. And it's really easy for a Sputnik to get buried in the sand if it's been out there for, 45 minutes to an hour. So if you're checking it about every 20 to 30 minutes, chances are you're not going to lose that expensive piece of tackle. Okay, here's mistake number 4, and this is a big one. They don't keep tension on the line. This is something I cannot explain enough. People that are learning surf fishing, people who have done other kinds of fishing and they haven't done beach fishing before. It's really, really important to keep tension on your line. And there's 2 different times that you really want to pay attention to this. In the sand spike. So when your pole is in the sand spike, you've got to have some tension on the line. So I have my drag set so where it's a little tiny bit loose in case we get a shark, in case we get a bigger fish, then the drag will start pulling. They just throw it out, they put it in there. They don't like reel it up to where there's a bend on the top of the rod and there's tension on the line. And what that does is not only are you going to see the fish bite sooner, you're going to see that line start jumping up and down, but you won't know if you have a pompano on the line if your line is always slack, because what happens with pompano, and maybe you don't know this, is they will get hooked up on your rig and they're going to start swimming toward the beach. So a lot of times you look over and your line is just slack. And so if you have tension on the line and then all of a sudden you see it straight up and down, if it's pompano season, you can bet there's probably a pompano on the end of that line. If it's slack to begin with, then you're never going to notice when you have a pompano on the line. And so the second time you want to look for tension in the line is when you're reeling. So a lot of beginner anglers will pull that pole up out of the sand spike and just drop it as they start reeling. Well, what happens is when you drop that, you just put a bunch of slack in the line and that fish is gone. The other thing that I see people do all the time, they will, start reeling and then they'll stop and they'll just wait to see if they feel something. Well, what if you got a pompano on and it's swimming toward the shore? You're not going to feel anything anyways. So you've got to catch up with that fish. Whiting do this too. They can sometimes swim toward the shore as well. If you're on the beach fishing and your line goes off, just reel it right in anyways. Keep tension on the line at all times, because if there's any slack at any moment, that fish can pop right off. Even if you don't have a fish, you got to check that bait anyways, because you did have a bite and your bait could be gone. All right, mistake number 5, and then I'm going to get to that bonus tip for you. But mistake number 5 is they're trying to set the hook. So circle hooks will set themselves. They're made that way that they hook right in the corner of the lip. And if you set the hook, what's happening is you're ripping a bigger hole in its mouth. It's going to be so much easier for that fish to pop right off. So the key for reeling in fish from the beach, and especially this ties in with the last mistake that we just talked about, keeping tension on the line and just reeling steadily. So when you're pulling it out of the sand spike, you're just kind of pulling back to get the tension on the line, or reeling it fast so you catch up with the fish to get the tension back on the line. But at no point should you be jerking it, because you're jerking it. You could be jerking it right out of its mouth. You could be ripping a bigger hole in its mouth, making it easier to pop off. Jerking and setting the hook, that doesn't apply though for a casting lure. So if you are throwing a casting lure, pay attention to the type of hook you're using, because many of the casting lures are not using circle hooks. And so if it's not a circle hook, you still will need to set that hook. When you're throwing a casting lure, that's going to be a different situation. For our bonus tip, now this is something that I teach a lot of my clients, that they're focusing on the bait they're using, but they're not really paying much attention to the conditions that they're fishing in. I've got my rigs here, and we've got different color floats on here. Typically, you're going to be using a range of anything from red to orange to pink to yellow to green. When it comes to your rigs and the conditions, is if you're fishing in dirty water like we have here, if it's dirty, murky, it's not nice and clean like you have over on the Gulf side or down in South Florida, the yellows and the greens are what is going to cut through into the dirty water. They're going to see these much easier than they will, say, this pink one. This one's going to like disappear underwater compared to the greens and the yellows. If you're not using the right color, it's not going to be visible to the fish. So you want to maximize the visibility of your bait and of your rig. Especially if you're using any kind of floats, any kind of beads and things like that, you want them to be able to see those. That sounds simple, but it may make a huge difference in whether the fish even notice your bait. I hope this video has been helpful. Please leave a comment. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. And if you want to learn how to save money and salt your own shrimp, you're going to want to check out this next video here. Thanks for watching, and God bless.